Okay, we are recording.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So, as you know, we used to run kind of the CSS breakpoint sessions here and there, and also the JavaScript breakpoint sessions. But life happens, and and so forth. And we kind of realized that it might be better and more sustainable to just have one big session, which I guess we can just tentatively call the breakpoint, which would include like everything around CSS, JavaScript, HTML, UX, UI. So everything to do with interfaces and the people that work with interfaces, building them, designing them, and so forth, and everything that impacts that. And I guess our hope is that we'll do these once a month, and then we'll just kind of recap what happened the month, and unpack it a bit and give our own thoughts and so forth. So we just spent like a quick 3 minutes kind of just talking about what we think might be worth mentioning. So I'll just quickly run over them, and then like we can start diving into them. So one is Zero Height released a design systems report, which we can probably look into a bit and kind of just take some key takeaways from that. Then some other news is Parcel. For those of you that remember Parcel, like this was pre-Veep days, was kind of like the primary competitor to Create React App, which has been sunset now. I didn't know the Parcel was still actively being maintained, but
Nor did I until this link
yes,
appeared in my
exactly.
feed.
But so they just added React server components, which makes them the very first non-React framework tool to have React server components. So it might be worth just looking at that and chatting about the implications, and maybe just also a bit of our own thoughts on React server components. I know that both of us have quite a bit. Then a big one is, I think I should have probably started with this one, is kind of the recent, I don't want to say drama because I don't think drama is the right word, debacle. Let's say debacle. I think it's fair to call it a debacle.
I agree.
Yes, the in terms of vulnerabilities in next.js. Security vulnerabilities that surfaced.
My last
Then
two days at work.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Justin's we can do a joint therapy session on Justin's last 2 days at work, and then there's a really cool article by Microsoft in terms of a proposal to have separators in CSS Grid and so forth. And we can dive into that a bit. And then obviously everyone should know about this already, but TypeScript is getting rewritten in Go. Do you know what it was written in before? I would assume C sharp because it is
Good
Microsoft.
question. I imagine so.
Okay, but apparently it's going to be 8 times, oh well, according to the video, 10 times faster. And just talking about what are the implications there, because I've heard a lot of takes on that, and a couple of really bad takes that don't really understand what the implication is here. That think that somehow this is going to make your site faster. Spoiler,
Yeah,
it's
no, it's
not.
not.
Yes, and it might not actually even make your build process faster if you're just doing type stripping. But yeah, I don't want to get into it right now, but there are some other really good benefits downstream from this change. And then some interesting news in terms of TanStack. There's a TanStack form reached V1, and also it seems like there's a partnership, a Netlify TanStack partnership on the horizon, which is interesting given that that might mean that Netlify is making moves to position TanStack
Yeah.
as a competitor to Next.js.
Yeah.
So Vercel, which is kind of Vercel, which is Next.js, Vercel, which is Netlify's commercial competitor, is the maintainer of Next.js. So I think they might be positioning themselves to have TanStack start kind of be a direct competitor to Next.js, which is very interesting because I do think there is a bit of resistance to how hard Next.js is pushing React Server components,
Yeah.
and I know one thing that is it? I always forget if it's Tanner Lindsay or Lindsay Tanner. I think it's Tanner Lindsay.
Tanner Lindsay,
Yes,
yeah.
I always get them mixed up.
Two first
He's
names.
yes, exactly. So he's very much saying that the goal with TanStack Start is that it is a SPA only approach. So this is for people who just want a single page app. So
Mhm.
yeah, like there's some interesting moves happening here where I think Netlify
Yeah.
might be trying to bank on trying to convert some of the people that are not on board with the kind of push for React server components, but want
Mhm.
what Next gives, but just without of
Yeah.
all of that. And I think it's a very
Yeah.
smart move on their. I actually think Tan Stack Start. I think really like hold on to your butts. Like I think it's going to be pretty big.
I hope
Um,
so too. Yeah.
yes.
Because it's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then just like a really good read that was published
Yeah.
recently as well.
Excellent
I did,
read.
yeah, that isn't necessarily like that informative, but just like a really good read and an opinion piece and so forth that we might also cover. All right,
Yeah.
so I think
Just
yes.
a
Mm,
funny aside on
mm,
Amelia. I read her stuff all the time, and I just
mm.
went into her about where she says she works on a tiny team at GitHub on a tiny R&D team
D
within
team
GitHub,
within GitHub.
and then you check it out, and it's 32 people. That's a tiny GitHub team.
I guess in the context of GitHub, it's
Yeah,
that is pretty tiny. There was another article that I read by her that was phenomenal, but she's amazing.
agreed.
Um,
Yeah,
let me see if I can
amazing
find it
stuff. Yeah,
now. Yeah, okay. I don't want to go into it, but
yeah.
yeah, she's like I just follow her. I think you should follow her, even if you don't have an interest in the domain that she specializes in. Just because I think her ways of articulating her ideas is just so like interesting.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
actually comes from a data viz background, so she brings a
Mm,
lot of that kind of thinking into what she does, which
mm,
is
mm.
very interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Right.
So let's
Shall
get
we
into
start with
this.
the let's start with the elephant.
Yeah. So where is the? I think the best place would be to go straight to. Is there like an announcement or something
Yes, there
somewhere?
is. It's on the next
Uh,
blog. It's on their blog, and they
mm,
released patches.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me give it a quick read, see if because I didn't deal with this because I have the unfortunate problem of like a lot of the stuff I'm working with is still very old, like old versions of things. So I and I still have a Create React app running out there. So um, but I
as
didn't
we do, as we
spend the
all
last
do.
two. Yeah, I didn't spend the last 2 days just like patching things, but has been released. Address security. Let me just see if my understanding of it. Yes, and also noted like the actual instance where I do use Next.js, I use standalone, and
Yeah.
standalone is kind of like the traditional, I almost want to say
Mm.
Jamstack approach, where you
Yeah.
just create the static files and you upload them.
Correct. Yeah.
So this only covered if you are actually running Next.js in production on a server.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, okay, so should update immediately. Disclosure. Okay, so the timeline,
Okay, that
middleware.
timeline. Let's just pause on that, Scott,
Oh, is
because
is that important? Okay.
that is not good. Yeah. The
Yeah.
disclosure was on the 27th of February,
Yikes. Started
and the
triaging
pat
the report. Yeah.
yeah,
It's almost a month later. Yeah.
almost a month later. That
You're.
so they obviously and they prioritized 15 over
Mm,
older versions, which to me seems like the wrong way around.
yes.
Um, yeah,
Yikes.
so I mean, it's concerning that it took so long. Yeah, that's all I just wanted to point out there.
Yes, and the actual security advisory was only published like
Last week.
like that's not great. Um yeah, phew, okay. Like I don't know
Oh,
enough to kind of read too much into that. I don't know, like maybe they're just getting like thousands and thousands a day. So
could
um
be, could
yeah.
well be.
But this is
But this is rated as a 9.1 and a critical. It only goes up to 10. So I mean, it's very serious. Yeah.
Okay, so this is middleware sub request prevent recursive requests from triggering infinite loops, possible skip running. Okay, so like it sounds like the actual behavior here is that if it triggers an infinite loop, it just skips ahead, right?
Yeah. Correct.
That's so my assumption would be that is a way that if you trigger an infinite loop, you can actually skip authentication.
Can skip critical checks. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's not great. Okay, so my understanding by just giving this a quick glance is that, and feel free to in the comments let me know if I'm misunderstanding this. Is that if you can trigger an infinite loop in the request, then like you can actually, if you know about like kind of the way that things like you know how most middleware works is there are phases to the request, so it seems like then you can jump ahead. So you have a phase where you maybe check if someone's logged in, and
Yeah.
then if they're logged in, then they get access to the next phase. So you kind of pipe them
That's
through
right.
phases. So it seems
Yeah.
like if you trigger an infinite loop, you can actually skip ahead. So like you
Yeah.
can skip the check that checks if you're logged in and so forth, which
Yeah.
is sure that's
So
not great.
so
Yeah.
so middleware is usually used to redirect after authentication. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
In Next. So
Yes.
you put in roots like, and you can, I mean, and that can get very complicated based on roles and all kinds of things.
Mm,
Uh,
mm.
yeah.
So the
And
implication.
if you
Yes.
rolling your own auth, it's particularly problematic.
Yes. So how big of a is this a breaking change? Like is it as simple as just updating, or do you need to actually
It depends. Yeah. So
really?
it depends on which version of Next you're in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one project that's using 14 and using Pages Router.
Yes.
Uh, and just running the patch didn't really help much. Um, so we've embarked on a 15 upgrade, and that's
Oh geez,
introducing.
because now okay, so you have to convert now to the app router.
No, we don't have to convert to the app router. You can still use Pages, no problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're not locked into using app router with 15. You can continue to use Pages. It's still
Mm,
supported.
mm.
But then you run into all sorts of, legacy problems and
Libraries, probably third-party libraries
libraries
and
that are no
stuff.
longer compatible, etc., etc.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So
Oh
it's not
geez,
as
man.
simple as just running
It's
the
not a minor
patch.
release.
It's definitely not a minor release. No.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, and this probably goes back quite far. So you can't just bump your own by a minor release. You probably need to skip all the way to the front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
if you're even
Mm,
further back, like if you're still on 12 or 13, and I'm many applications are still on 12 or 13.
mm,
Um, Serious
mm,
problem. And the 12 patch doesn't work at all, just
mm,
to note. And
mm,
their own tests are failing on their repo for 12, which I checked
mm.
yesterday,
Yeah.
on Monday. Yeah, so it's a problem.
Okay. Interesting. I see. It's only like if you're hosted on Vercel or Netlify, you're not affected by this.
No, if you do your own deployment via, if you're on anywhere, any other hosting platform.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I have a good I have a good hunch what you're using. I don't want to disclose that publicly, but just looking at the entire tool chain that you're using, you're probably using that platform's hosting as well. Yeah. Okay.
correct.
Yikes, which is not one of these two. Okay, interesting. Um, so
Mm.
this might not be as big of a thing for most people, but if you do find yourself in a very specific situation like you guys do, where you're kind of a bit behind and you're also not hosting on Vercel or Netlify, which
Yeah,
if you are hosting on Vercel or Netlify, rest in peace your wallet. But
exactly. Which is why we don't.
yeah, so okay, cool. All right, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, just another thing to note: if you are on Cloudflare, you can also
Yes.
just enable, they've got a little bit down there, you can enable some additional protections and you're fine. Yeah.
Oh,
Managed WAF on
okay.
Cloudflare. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And maybe this is also just a good shout out for the talk that Alicia did on.
Yes,
This is
absolutely. We
very
actually mentioned
topical.
this. We mentioned this on Monday in her security talk. Yeah.
Yes, so it's.
Yeah.
I don't want to go as far as saying that we had a role in this, but yeah, maybe check out Alicia's talk that she did on kind of security for front end developers. Awesome. Okay, then. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at the design systems report. I haven't looked at this at all. Have you looked at it, Justin?
Yes, I've gone through it quite thoroughly.
So there was one. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but there was one by Sparkbox Design. Are they no longer running that?
They haven't
Does
run it for a while.
yes, because they used to run. Okay, it seems like the
2022
last
was the
2020.
last one.
Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, because I was just curious, like, why is there now a new one? Okay, so they've kind of stopped with that. So I guess then Zero Height, which like seems very much like a good thing for Zero Height to actually get involved with, is now picking that
Definitely,
up.
yeah,
Mm,
definitely.
yeah, yo,
Um,
these colors, man. Good luck.
yeah,
Like, good
I
luck if
know.
you're colorblind. Like, you're just gonna see a
Yeah,
gray blob here.
yeah. The
Okay,
interesting thing, as always, is around adoption.
of design
Um,
systems.
yeah, and so
Mm,
not necessarily the demographics, etc.
mm, mm,
Um, and of course, everyone's using Figma, uh,
mm,
unsurprisingly.
mm. Unsurprisingly, now, 10 years ago, that would have been like you would have not expected that 10 years
No,
ago. Yeah.
yeah,
Organization 500. Okay. Under. Why are so many people under 100 employees building design systems? Interesting.
mm.
Mm, I do both. I use them. Okay. What was any interesting takeaways for you from this?
Um, so maybe if you just go back up
Hmm.
to the table of contents,
Oh yes, the redness.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that 6 and 7,
Hmm.
you can
How
just click
healthy is
on
your design
those.
system? Uh,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
that's yeah. So
Hmm.
that's, I mean, what does stable mean? I'm not entirely sure, but people are saying
Yes.
it's unstable. That's a lot of people. Yeah,
Yes. And like
yeah, and
I'm curious how much of that unstable. I would assume unstable means like it actually like it being a reflection of like what's currently being used.
yeah, exactly. Yes, and
Yeah,
how
this is very
what's
concerning.
yeah, what's
Mm,
in your actual application versus what's in your design system, and a massive mismatch there.
I would assume so, yes. And like
Yeah,
I would also assume that part of this is also stuff that's abandoned.
yeah.
Um, I would love to see how many design systems are abandoned.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I'm sure many. Yeah,
yes, last survey by Smartbox. I think it was something
Sparkbox.
ridiculous. It was like 1 in 3 design
Yeah,
systems end up being abandoned, which is
yeah,
yeah. Um,
and then the trust reflects the same thing. Yeah,
but this is also tricky because I would
but
assume this is the people who created it is answering this
yes,
likely.
they are. Yeah,
So someone like
yeah,
you and me would fill this in. Some random marketing person is not going to fill in the survey. So I think we also need to take into account that the people who are filling this in or kind of biased towards design systems already.
definitely. Yeah.
Um, these are markers of what are your biggest challenges? Lack of resources or staffing. But so this to me is interesting because the whole premise of design systems is it saves on work.
Yeah.
So like if the biggest problem, so and it's also just worthwhile for me to just like be upfront about my own biases, like, and my anecdotal experiences. But I'm of the opinion that like kind of are like the way we do design systems broadly as an industry and as practitioners is dysfunctional. The general way which we do it. On average, if someone's building a design system, I would say my um, my assumption or inclination would be that they're probably doing it wrong. Um, and when I say doing it wrong, I don't mean like, oh, the Skulk Venter approved way. I mean just like it's not gonna have good outcomes. Um,
Mm.
and I think this kind of reaffirms kind of my own hot takes on this, is because that to me would be the reason why you do a design system. If you're doing
Yeah.
a design system for for consistency, like that's not a good reason. There's cheaper ways to solve the problem of consistency, like a style
Oh
guide.
yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and like yeah,
Mm.
see this as well. Like just like reading my own biases and hot takes into this, I would say that we still have a very big problem of people building design systems where there's no need for a design system.
Mm.
um, they're preemptively building design systems for their team or their product or whatever, where there's no clear reason for that design system to exist beyond the team just wants to be one of the cool kids that have a design system. Yeah,
I,
100%.
I
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a factor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
because to me, like the challenges that I see being listed here are things that a design system, by definition of it being a design system, should
should
solve for
solve.
you.
Completely
If
agree. Yeah.
if you need more resources to do your design system, then like that, like how is that possible?
Mm.
Um, it kind of feels to me like like it's
Yeah. And
how's that
and
possible? It's supposed to save resources. But yeah, maybe
yeah.
I'm just reading this wrong or I'm coming at this from the wrong
Mm.
angle.
Well,
But
I
to
mean,
me,
I
this
especially
feels like it is sorry, to me this feels like a design system is being treated as something that's being done on top of your process. And it's
yes,
not
rather than
a
informing the
reorientation of
process
your
from the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
not becoming
Yeah.
your process.
Yeah. I mean, that
Okay.
second one, the ensuring consistency, that's exactly what a design system should be doing. So,
By
that,
definition, not it
yeah,
shouldn't have to ensure consistency.
no, you
Like
shouldn't, because you've got your design system. That's your
yes,
consistency. Yeah.
yeah. I think a lot of people are creating style guides and
Mm,
calling it
yeah.
design systems.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then, yeah. Well, I don't want to go into it too much, but I can tell you,
yeah.
I've spent some time with organizations and their Figma processes, and wow,
Mm,
that's all I'm going to
yeah.
say.
Yeah, and like just to punt my own biases here a bit more, like yeah, you can probably Google it. I have an interview with Alfie um, from Edit Undo podcast where I kind of
Mm,
talk about kind of the fact that I think we need to be talking about the ways that design systems are being done wrongly, more that like when we talk about design systems, given the state of design systems, on average we need to talk about the bad things first and foremost, because I
yeah,
do think on average design systems fail more than they succeed, and
okay,
avoiding
cool.
the bad things instead of like what makes a good design system.
Yeah. Didn't
But
you do a
the
talk
way
on that, Scott?
yes, yes, so that's based on, so the podcast is based on a talk that I
On the
did.
talk. Oh, okay, cool.
Yes. Yeah. So, but that's my own biases here. So obviously, I'm going to see everything through that lens. But I genuinely feel that, like, there's an underrepresentation of talking about like what are the things that you shouldn't do when creating a design
Cool.
system. But no one wants to write those articles. No one wants to
No,
like in their
be,
blog publish like how we messed up our design system.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Okay. Insufficient
It,
budget. Yeah. Like to me, this should be number one. Accessibility,
yeah.
like ensuring accessibility. Like, so ensuring that the components, that should be the thing that's the biggest thing that you're solving. That's the
Mm,
hardest to solve, is how do you make everything in your design system composable but also accessible?
mm,
Because to me, like, the idea of building something in a vacuum, like let's say you have a button or you have a modal or whatever, that has accessibility problems because accessibility operates on in a context.
mm.
So let's say you have a card or whatever. It's very hard to say what heading level should the title in that card be because you don't know the
Yes.
context that it's going to be used in. So to
Yeah.
me, this should be number one. And the fact that this is a number one to me is indicative that, yeah, I'm careful to say people are doing design systems wrong, but it's indicative that they don't do it the way that I do it. Let me put it this way. Okay. Um, Anything else that you find
Um,
interesting?
let's go down
Culture
some
of
more.
resistance. Uh, if anything, like I would say, like I'd be curious, Justin. I'd be curious what your biggest challenge would be. But I think for me, if I were to say the biggest challenge for me would be, um, I kind of like be understanding and being on the same page in terms of the trade-offs that are required by a modular system. So that
Mm,
means by definition your things are going to look more generic. There's no way around that. Like if
yeah.
you are a designer and you want a design system, as a rule of thumb, you can't have it both ways. Things are going to look more generic, and
No,
like
I agree with that.
there's no win-win scenario where you have a design system and you can still have things quote unquote pop or whatever. You know, it is going to look very generic. It is going to look
Yeah.
like it's going to look. It's not going to have the same level of refinement as you would if you're tackling every design on a case-by-case basis. Um,
Yeah. I completely
so
agree with
to
that.
me, that would be my biggest challenge, is actually just getting the team on board with that and having people accept that and be like,
Mm,
we understand this and we're not gonna
yeah.
complain when things look generic. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
Mm,
And uh, and the systematic thing that you need to do with a design system is just like, if we're talking in Figma or doing it
mm,
in code or whatever, is what is distinguishing, not over engineering it in any way. Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Certain things
Yeah.
don't belong in your design system. Don't
Yes.
put them in there. We don't want
Yes.
7 different header gradient variations as a component, yeah, or
Mm,
things like that's just off the top of my head. Um,
yes.
you
Yeah.
don't need that. You need UI elements that are to do with user interactions. Those needs
Mm,
to be in your design system, and
yes.
other things don't. Yeah,
Yes. I
and
would. Yeah. Go ahead.
and you can easily measure the health of your design system in something like Figma by just looking at how are your components being detached and how often. And if they are, then there's something wrong with that component, and you can easily then go and
Mm,
reevaluate it. Yeah.
yeah.
And don't try and create components to fit every use case you can probably possibly think of.
Mm.
You over engineering it.
I would love to do a talk on like solid for design
Solid.
systems. So I don't know
Yeah, that's a great
you're
idea.
familiar with, like kind of the single
Yeah.
responsibility,
Yes.
open close principle, because
Yeah.
like components are just abstractions at the end of the
Yes,
day.
they are.
So all the rules that we have for creating good abstractions are valid. Like single
Mm.
responsibility, they should be open for extension,
Yes.
closed for modification.
Mm.
Um, Liskov substitution, I think that's actually valid because like that would mean that you have elements, you have for example a list or something that can take any type of component in it and render a list of that component. You don't have a user list, a
Yeah.
task list. You
Exactly.
have
Yeah.
a list that in terms of polymorphism is able to just handle any type of thing that you put in it. Um,
mm,
I
mm.
think I just came up with my next talk. Okay,
Okay, great.
but if anything, for like just my quick scanning of this, I do find the fact that there's so much mention about buy-in and convincing
Mm,
and trust,
yeah,
and
yeah,
also like that the numbers, like only 33%, well, let's say 41% is satisfied and above with their ability to secure buy-in.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
I
to
mean,
me,
that's a
once
systematic problem. Yeah.
yes, and to me, once again, coming from the perspective that I'm coming from, I would attribute that to the fact you probably don't need a design system. So the
Mm,
fact that you don't have buy-in is the rest of the team indicating to you like this is not helping us,
yeah,
but you're set on
yeah.
having a design system, so you
Mm,
try and convince them, um,
mm,
because when you're doing a design system, the rest of your team, they are the clients, they are the customers, and I'd often see that not being understood, and I often see
yeah.
when I speak to designers them complaining that the developers aren't following the style guide or the design system or whatever. And I'm like, that's a you problem,
Yeah.
because you don't need to coerce them to follow it. You're creating the system for them. But I
Hmm.
think it's people are creating design systems for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
either for themselves or for brand consistency or whatever. But anyway, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I've
Agreed.
summarized
Yeah.
my takes. Yeah. Once again, design system adoption.
Super
Uh,
low. Yeah.
oh, okay. No, no, sorry. This is what gets used to track success.
Oh,
Okay. So
yeah.
at the very least, people are just tracking the right thing. How widely is design system adopted? Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
terrible.
This is,
Yeah.
yeah. Oof. AI usage. What? What is this? Sorry, I just want to. What are the markers of a well-adopted design system?
Yeah.
What AI usage? What usage of AI in the design system team?
Yeah. I
I
don't know
don't.
about that.
I don't. I don't understand this answer. I
Me,
guess
I
it's
no.
they just need to shoehorn the word AI in here somewhere.
Yeah. It's got to be somewhere,
Um,
right?
okay, cool. So
Okay.
Um, let's. I think the tan stack one is maybe another big one that's That's maybe I don't have the energy to get into right now. So let's do the
Okay.
TypeScript importer to go. Uh, let me just see if I
Yeah.
can
So
find the
that's
official announcement. Why does it always give me the Reddit one first? Um, oh, is the announcement
yes.
the video? There is no like actual.
No, no. There is an art. There's an article here as well.
Okay, the video is just embedded in it. It seems.
Yeah.
Is
The
this
video
a
is just embedded, but there is an
yeah?
article. Yeah.
Mm,
Um.
mm. So maybe give your understanding of the implications of this, and then I'll maybe add on to that
Yeah. So
where
it's
I
really important
misunderstand
to
or so
note
forth.
that this
Yeah.
is just compiler and tools. Yeah. That is being
Mm,
ported. It's
mm,
not um, that you're suddenly going to have a faster application or something because of that.
mm,
It's all
mm,
around editor speed. Yeah.
mm.
Um, and um, I think I think TypeScript is written in TypeScript, Scott,
No, but
which
how
is
did they
super
create
weird.
types? No, this
Oh,
is a
oh
bit of a.
no! Originally, it was C sharp. Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
but now it's in JavaScript. Yeah,
Yes. So the higher level. So obviously,
yeah,
you once you have your primitives, then you
yes,
can.
exactly. That
But
was all
yeah,
C sharp. Yeah.
yeah, I do
Um,
see down here. Someone mentioned like, okay, but then like shouldn't C sharp be rewritten in Go then as well? And I can actually give an answer to that. But I think what is C sharp written in? It's probably written in like lower level, like I actually don't know. But the thing is,
I
like, I
don't
think
know.
one of the things with Go, I can probably say this just up front, is that it is harder. It would be harder to write TypeScript in Go than like something like C sharp, because Go is at a lower level in terms of your language abstraction.
Yeah.
So yeah, like now you're getting, it's not at the level of something like C, but you're getting close to where you actually now can't use as nice abstractions. So it's
Yeah.
probably a bit more of a pain for the TypeScript team to write it and Go than what they were previously doing. But I would assume just because of the adoption of TypeScript, it's probably worth it.
Yeah.
And like these numbers, the numbers I saw here, this is amazing.
Yeah. Incredible.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
77. Yeah. So
However, look
go
at
ahead.
the roadmap further down.
Hmm.
That's near the bottom. Next
It is
steps.
versioning. Oh, next steps. What
Maybe it's
specifically?
not there.
Is it not this
This is
versioning
good.
roadmap?
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Oh,
no, they're
TypeScript
not giving any
7.
dates here, but I read somewhere that it's going to be at least another year before this
Oh,
is
I
ready.
think I think Mr. Pocock,
Ah,
he
yes.
estimated. So I think he went according to like how big is the code base, how long does it take,
Yeah.
and like
Okay.
he said, it's like I think it ended up something like 10 years or something. Yeah, I saw that. So like he just
Yeah.
made an estimation of how long this is going to take, but I think this is a good direction. Um, and I think
Definitely.
especially as TypeScript grows, um, like I mean, like the type of stuff with all the mapped typing and the conditional typing and stuff you can do now, TypeScript's almost becoming its own. The types in TypeScript is becoming its own like Turing complete language, where you can
Yeah.
actually do. I think someone wrote a game using TypeScript types or something at
Oh,
some point.
really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
where there's like a lot of there's control flow and there's if statements and whatever. So the stuff you can do now is just like TypeScript by far. Like I need to be very clear here in my words. I'm not saying TypeScript is the best statically typed language. In fact, I actually think it's one of the worst ones, but it is the most powerful one at this point.
Yeah.
Like the things, there's stuff you can do in TypeScript that you can do in no other statically typed language. Once again, that doesn't make it the best one. I actually think it's a pretty bad one because of no fault of its own, but just because it uses JavaScript as a subset instead of
Mm.
just saying we're going to get rid of the weird shit. In I probably shouldn't swear. We're going to get the weird stuff in JavaScript and just reconsider that they've kind of extended so they kind of get JavaScript along for the ride. But yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
this is amazing. So just to summarize, what this means is your users are not going to see any difference.
No.
um, you are not going to see any difference in your code building unless you're doing the types if unless you're using the actual native TypeScript compiler, which
Yeah.
if you are, what is wrong with you and why do you hate yourself? So because what most modern tooling do is they don't parse the TypeScript and turn it into JavaScript. They just go over the strings of your code and they remove all the types. It's basically
Yeah.
like a fat regex where it just
Hmm.
regexes out all the TypeScript stuff. So you won't
Yeah.
see any difference there. Where you're going to see a difference is where it needs to take the TypeScript, understand how all this stuff relates to one another, and then make sense of it. So you're going to see
Yeah.
the biggest benefit in your code editor
Yeah.
because when you make changes, it's rerunning TypeScript all the time, all the time, all the
Every
time, all the
single
time.
time. Yeah.
And it's gotten a lot better because now they do like some caching and stuff, which brings
Mm.
its own problems, meaning that sometimes you need to manually tell it to reevaluate a file, and it's still using the cached version of that file. Sometimes you need to restart VS Code or whatever, but it used to be really bad. It's better now, but there was definitely a point where you would make decisions in terms of your typing purely just by is this code, how slow is this going to make my
Mm.
IDE? And you
Mm.
would
Mm.
not type stuff. You were just like, this is the any, because I don't want like a 2000, like the 2000 array enum, and that's just
Yeah.
gonna like make my
Yeah. Yeah.
TypeScript
Yeah.
make VS Code 10 minutes to start up. But yeah, but it's still a
Yeah.
problem. Like
It's
admittedly,
still a
it's still a
problem. Yeah.
problem.
Especially
Yeah,
in really
especially.
large code bases. It's,
And if you're using stuff
yeah.
like Zod and so forth, where you're
Oof.
doing a lot of inference,
Yeah.
um, I think if you just use TypeScript and you just manually type up string, number, whatever, and you use it like that, like you're fine. But most
Mm.
code bases do some type of inference where it looks at something and then it figures out what the type is, and then based on this type, it figures out what is this other type, and so forth. Yeah, and that's where things start getting really slow. I know the
Yeah.
type of operator is kind of the big bottleneck at the moment. Cool. All right, let's quickly dig into. So let me start. Let's dig into the tan stack stuff. Justin,
Okay.
have you used any form library at all?
Yeah.
Really? What are you
A
guys using?
couple. At the moment, we are using.
Formic is
Let
the
me
big
remind.
one.
Yeah, I think we're using
There's
React Hook
final
Forms.
form. Yeah, React hook
We've used
forms.
Final Forms in the past, but we've moved to React Hook Form, I think.
Yes. Is that the one that also allows you to have uncontrolled stuff?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't. I've tried to convince myself to use a form library several times, and every time I'm just like I'm more satisfied with what I'm. Um, sorry, my wife just wants to come. I can't buy stuff. Just wants to like I don't want to say photo bomb, video bomb. So also this is very clearly AI generated. Just looking at this, I can
Oof,
tell from the pixels.
that's nasty.
This, yeah, this is the smell of AI all over it. Like where it's like not
Yeah,
sure where the
yeah.
surface
The
ends and
circles
where it
are
begins,
all
and
everything's all.
yeah. Okay, come on,
Yikes.
Tanner, you're better than this, man. Um, so yeah, I actually yeah. So and I've been trying to. What is the what would be the reason why form libraries just never click for me? Do you think it's just like I don't work in applications where the forms are sufficiently big and complex enough?
Maybe, maybe.
Is
I mean,
it?
it could be.
I
Yeah,
just I just use I generally just use the straight up like submit event listener. I take that form data, I I coerce it into form data, and I just do the object from entries on it, and then I have a JSON.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
that's absolutely, yeah, great.
yeah,
Um, well, I mean, applications we work on are very form heavy. Yeah. So like
yeah,
completing a transaction, for example, on a financial services product
mm,
where there's a lot of there's so many business rules involved in something like that that
yeah.
your form state has to change and update all the time as
I
you're
see. You
moving
probably have
through
a lot of
various
conditional
sections of it.
stuff.
So many conditionals. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess it also. Yeah. Okay. No. See, I like thinking of it now. I don't have any really big forms, like on the level of something you would. I guess it's like the type of stuff you would put in what's that thing called type form, or
ooh,
whatever, where it's
ooh.
like multiple steps. I guess then you
Yeah,
start
yeah,
getting
yeah.
into this realm. Yeah. See, I don't really.
Yes, exactly.
Mm,
Yeah.
I tend
Anything that
to.
you, because it's
Mm,
all wizards type in a sense. Yeah. The
yes.
kinds of things we do. Yeah.
Yes. So the type of stuff that I work on is more kind of like stuff where you just do incremental. You have like a big piece of data, but you like literally just chisel on it here and there and whatever. Like oh, you update this quantity, you update that thing. You don't
Yeah.
have like a big process where you feed something into. Where I guess in fintech you have more of that type of thing. There's
Yeah.
like a
Cool.
big form you need to fill in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also use, I mean, one of the advantages we have with React Hook Form is that it integrates really nicely with something like Zod or Yap
Mm,
or
mm,
and
mm,
and also we also use ShadCN quite a bit, and
mm,
ShadCN integrates is also integrated with React Hook Form. So there are lots of
mm,
reasons for using
mm.
it. But yeah, anyway, let's have a look
Mm.
at this.
Yes, so basically we started to announce stable version, 5 frameworks. Okay, so I think first and foremost, like, and this is a staple thing in TanStack, is that like it's actually supported in various um
Everywhere, pretty much.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
which yeah, I don't know, like isn't really like a big sell for me, but um sure. I guess it's cool. Um,
Yeah.
um, tennis. One of the advantages. Okay, cool. Yeah. So he mentions that one of the advantages is, like, I assume you could learn from all the other. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you could
Exactly.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, from all the other, like when he. Okay, so type safe. How type safe are the libraries that you've used in the past?
React form, the React form, very much so. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it?
It's all TS
Okay.
based. It's all, yeah.
Yes. Okay. You don't need to pass any TypeScript generics. Uh, okay. This is cool. I don't know if you know about standard schema. This is really
Yes,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
standard schema is great. Yeah.
So it's basically, so if you've been using Zod or Valibot or any of those stuff, they are coming up with the standard that is a
Yeah.
way to express validation logic that you can use in
Yeah.
any tool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, which is great because
So
but this is still a work in progress, if I'm not mistaken. It's not
standard
complete yet.
schema.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
was it? Mm-hmm.
Um, Sorry, I need to switch my headphones. I've run out of batteries. Give me a second.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just read through this. Okay. Um, from my reading of this seems that effectively the main appeal of TanStack form is that because it's a bit late in the game, it could learn from mistakes that other form libraries made, and also like use their features as inspiration. And also because it's a bit late in the game, it has access to things, like standard schema or whatever, that weren't a thing back when, for example, Formic or whatever was created. But it doesn't seem like there's any features that it's touting as specific unique to TanStack form, just from the looks of it. In the way that their router has a lot of things that are unique that are not in React Router or whatever. Are you guys using a router library? I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Sorry,
Mm.
Zustand usually.
Router?
Oh, Rata, sorry. No. You're just using Next for routing.
The next. Okay. Routing,
Sorry,
routing. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about
I
state
always get
management.
confused by which is the right, whether it's routing or routing. I don't know.
Rata is
Yeah.
American.
Okay. So it's probably the one that I would use because, like, I'm not natively English, so I learned English from TV. Okay. It's like dance and dance. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, cool. All right. Okay. But
Um,
then go ahead.
Something I was, yeah, with Start,
Mm.
are all these things going to be just included in Start,
I,
all the
w-
other
I would
TanStack things?
assume as much. Yes. I assume the end goal
Is
is
to
that,
consolidate all those things into
yeah,
Start.
the router, query, table, form, virtualization,
Mm,
store. I think store is like a zoo stand. Yeah, this is kind of like your classic like zoo stand,
yeah.
like sub pub sub, sorry, pub sub, like observer pattern thing.
Hmm.
Okay, I actually haven't gone through like the tan stack stuff like one by one. I use the query one and virtual. The virtual one is amazing. I use the virtual one
I've
everywhere.
I've
Mm.
used the table and the query. The table is also amazing because we
Really.
presented loads of tabular data. Yeah.
So for me, like the same as with the form thing, it feels like whatever I hand roll, I'm always way more satisfied with what I hand roll than using table. Um,
Okay.
but yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So, but yeah, TanStack start. I don't think it's ready for production use just
I
yet.
Not
Yeah.
yet. It's still
Okay,
in
it's in
beta.
beta.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it does seem like there's now some movement in terms of an official partnership with Netlify. So I'd probably say that this is going to TanStack Start is going to become the de facto framework that you use on Netlify in the
Yeah,
way that
definitely.
next.js. And I think we're going to see a big, what would be the word? Big pushback's the wrong word, but a reorientation back to kind of like more single page app stuff. Definitely
Away from server components.
by some parts of the community.
Yeah,
And I think, yeah, because I do also think a lot of the initial push towards React server components is a lot of people that were building stuff in React that probably shouldn't have been built in React. I actually think if you want to rely that heavily on the server, you're much better off just using like another tool. Um, but yeah, that's my hot take. But anyway,
yeah.
so
I
I
yeah.
yeah
Sorry, I just yeah. Vercel are absolutely pushing server stuff because it matches their hosting model and how they make their
yeah
actual money.
100%. Yeah, this is a
This
conversation I actually have with a lot of people. Is like they kind of are under the impression where Vercel is pushing them as best practices.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I actually think like Vercel is to a certain degree pushing you away from best practices
Yeah, yeah.
because it's
Well,
pushing you to couple your logic with a specific platform, which is a bad
yes,
idea.
very bad
Uh,
idea.
because if Vercel tomorrow decides that they're going to charge you R1 trillion now per month, like you're stuck. Like it's going to be a massive task to move away from Vercel.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
for them as a company, that's a good thing. So they're going to
Yeah,
push you in that direction. But I do think they are pushing you to couple your code too tightly with their platform.
I agree.
Um, and I think
And
a big, yeah, go ahead.
what gets lost in this whole discussion around server components is that Next doesn't lock you into doing that. You can have your
Yes.
backend anywhere. You can do anything you
Mm,
like with your backend. You don't need to suddenly regard Next as a full stack framework. It's not
yes.
anything that you're required to do. But
Yes.
Netlify doesn't make that particularly obvious. I mean,
Yes.
Vercel, sorry.
Yes.
Netlify.
For
Apologies,
obvious
Netlify.
for
For
obvious
obvious
reasons.
reasons.
Yes.
Because
Yes. Yeah.
once you start developing with that framework and logic,
Mm,
you are hooked into deployments via
mm,
Vercel because
yeah.
we don't host on Vercel, we don't host on Netlify, and it
Mm.
is a pain to self-host Next. Yeah.
Yes. There is something
Uh,
called Open Next. I don't know if you're
yeah.
familiar with
So
that.
yes.
Yeah.
So actually, Netlify use OpenNext in the
Mm,
background for their Next.js adapter when you deploy on
mm,
Netlify Next. So they are using this.
mm.
Unfortunately, we host with you know who,
Yes.
um, and there
Yeah.
isn't.
Mr. COVID himself. The mastermind behind Microsoft. Let me just put
He's
it out
giving it
there.
away. Uh,
Oh no, like massive security leak right there. Like
uh,
yeah.
yeah, and there's no Open Next
Mm,
nice configuration for that. And yeah,
mm,
it's once you've got it done, it's fine. But you've got to jump through a
mm.
lot of hoops to get it done. Yeah.
I also think, like, and I think maybe we can end off on this tangent, because I do think it's an interesting discussion. Is that I I do see a lot of, especially now. I think we sometimes forget how old React is.
Yeah.
Like I read a blog post somewhere where someone said, "Oh, technologies come and go." Like before React, it was jQuery or whatever. I'm like, dude, jQuery was like 20 years ago. Like
Yeah.
React, like it might feel to you like, oh, jQuery was just the other day, but like, I think a decade ago, 2015, I was writing almost exclusively just React already. Like I've been using React since the early days where you had to go create class, where classes weren't even supported in JavaScript
Yep.
yet. Um, yeah, it's and I think like so there's a lot of people that are getting into development and getting into React now that don't know anything before Next.js. Um,
Yes.
and they don't know what the benefits are that you get with a single page app. And when I say a single page app, I mean like obviously with hydration.
Yeah.
So, like your initial request might be from the server or a static file, but then from there it loads the actual JavaScript and that runs you your. Whereas Next is doing a lot of stuff with the server all the time. Um, so, yeah, it's going to be interesting where I think a lot of people, quote unquote, rediscover that. Because I do think we've shifted a bit too hard into the server component realm, and
Yeah.
I do think that's mostly because no one can make any money from your code running in a browser,
Nope.
whereas there's a lot of money to be made from code running on a server.
Yeah.
So I
Mm.
think that's so the financial interests are just like skewed. So, but yeah, I still I a lot of my React code is just like, um, as mentioned, like the extent to that I use Next, I'm just pushing out the static stuff. That's hosted on a CDN or whatever, and then the actual code boots up and so forth. Because there's also a lot of stuff that you can do with that. I would love to do a talk or a discussion on IndexedDB at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know if you're familiar with Dexy.
No.
I've been really enjoying Dexy. Um, so it kind of uses IndexedDB as your store for all your data, but it's also reactive. So it works like Zusta and whatever.
Right.
Um, but you don't have everything in memory all the time. So if you're working with large data, and it persists as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff, like that type of stuff you can't do if you're overly relying on React Server components. Um,
Yeah.
and I also think there's going to be a big chasm in terms of kind of a more push to local first and a push towards server components, because those two approaches are um, they're orthogonal. You can't do server components and local first, and
Mm.
vice versa. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's two movements here in the JavaScript space. Unfortunately, the one has just much more opportunity for making money as opposed to the local. So local first, you have like PowerSync and those guys, but on the scale of like Vercel and whatever, they're tiny. So yeah.
Very small. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I think
think I think the story on server components is far from finished. Like, there's
agreed.
still a lot of discussion that needs to be had.
I think there's also, well, I don't know how, I've also seen mutterings, uh,
Mm.
but I'm not sure how valid they are. That Next's future is being driven quite a lot by what Vercel wants. I mean, sorry,
No,
React's future is
yes,
being driven quite a lot by what Vercel wants,
there
because Vercel came
is.
out with the concept of server components before React had it in 19. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to get all conspiracy theory like, but I wouldn't
there,
be surprised.
that's I don't. Obviously, we can't speak to the validity of that, but that is a concern that gets raised a lot,
Yeah.
and I think it's just because the actual Facebook itself has kind of waned a bit, or Meta has kind of waned a bit in their support and even a reason for React existing. I'd be curious of how
Mm.
much of the stuff that Meta builds day in, day out is actually using React. Um, so I think they don't have that strong incentive to drive it that hard anymore and to maintain it. I think they definitely have less people on it now than they had like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. In the Dan Abramoff era.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think just because of incentives, um, because I know like next.js has a lot of people on the core React team, and next.js is literally paying people to work. They're hiring people
Yeah.
to work on React.
Hmm.
But because of the nature of open source, you can't say you're not allowed to contribute. You know.
Yeah.
But the problem
Yes.
there is if another company starts contributing more than the actual company who kind of initially started the project, like what does that mean? But yes,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's, but like I think also like I'm saying this as a React developer. I think React's time it has been up like 3 years ago already. Um, I think we need to start moving on, but people still enjoy React, so we'll still use
Mm.
it. I just think that React is bound to a lot of legacy stuff that you don't have if you started like Solid or whatever. But um, yeah, like there's no use in using something just because you want to use the thing that has the biggest market share.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a good thing if the mind share starts shifting a bit to some
Yeah.
modern
Agreed.
modern things.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
React is 14 years old now. I mean,
yes, and they need to support stuff. They need to support.
yeah.
They need to support class components, although no one uses them anymore, just because of backwards compatibility. So, yeah, and I also think there's a lot of like we are thinking around JSX, and the virtual DOM has evolved has developed a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and we also realized that the virtual DOM isn't the best way to do diffing, but kind of Reaction are stuck with that. They can't now go and
Yeah.
change that.
Mm.
So yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well. Like React still pays the bills. So here we go.
It does
Yeah,
indeed.
and that's maybe a good place to end it off.
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
React still pays the bills. Next.js still pays the bills despite everything else going on. And yeah,
Hasn't been paying the bills for the last 2 days.
yeah. So I think we can maybe end off with just like one cool thing that we'd like to share. And I'll maybe start first, and that might give you some time to think about one cool thing that you maybe want to share.
Oh,
Let me
okay,
just
cool. Yes,
share
I
my
have something.
screen. You're going to be very unhappy if it's the same, but knowing you is probably not the same thing. Um, this actually was shared. If you can just pop my screen on there. This was
About
actually
to.
shared by Adi Osmani, I think. And it's called, yes, what is it? I'm going to have to Google now. Let's say Web GPU Driving Simulator. I don't know if you saw this. I can't remember. Like, it's Low Roads or um,
Oh, yes.
what's the thing called?
Um,
I forgot the name now. Something Roads. Let me just see if my. I'm going to be very
road
risk.
maintenance.
No, 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 no. Let me just see.
Not that one.
Jeez, or is it road or? Oh,
Let
geez,
me
I wanted to
see.
share something cool now, and I forgot what the. Is it road or driving or? Geez, but it's like a. Okay, let me just see. Web 3D driving simulator.
It's
Uh,
called slow roads. Slow
Slow
roads.
roads, slow roads. Yes, see, there it actually starts populating. This is wild. This is just in your browser. Like
Yeah, it's insane.
the stuff that people do with like um, 3JS and it has like physics and stuff. Like, check this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And you have like boost and whatever. And I'm using my keyboard now to drive. It is wild. Like, look at this. And I can obviously stop and reverse, and it has like collision detection, and it is wild. Yeah. Cool. Um, I think, yeah, like,
Okay,
so,
great.
yeah, go ahead. Like, now it's your
I've
turn.
got some. Yeah,
Should
yeah.
I
Do you want
just
to just,
open it here?
yeah,
Yeah.
just search for fancy, as in,
Yeah.
fancy components. Yeah, that's it.
This is which one? This one. Curated
Yeah.
design.
No, damn it. Uh,
Is it React
It's
or what is it?
fancy components.dev. Fancy components.dev is
This one.
yeah, there.
Yeah.
This is
Make your website fancy.
just go
Oh
check docs.
no. I
Check
have a
docs.
feeling what I think this is. This is probably just really niche components that
Yes, absolutely. But they're
that
really
like
fun.
yeah, like that are like very niche components that you like isn't like common stuff that any website uses. Oh, this is so cool. Oh, this is amazing. Enter your email. Join the waitlist. Text log. Oh, cool. Yeah. So this is more. I get. This is more in terms of what are things that you can do in your UI that other people aren't doing. That other
Yeah, but you
libraries.
maybe shouldn't also.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is so cool. All right. Cool. There you
Check
have it.
the variable font cursor proximity.
Variable font. Oh no, I'm scared. Yeah, see, this is more the type of stuff that you do like in some type of either long form article or
Yeah,
like in
exactly.
in
Yeah.
like, oh, this year in Spotify or whatever.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Great for
uh
that. Don't
yeah.
put it in your financial
Yeah, don't
services application. On all your labels.
yeah,
And
on
you-
your forms.
yeah,
Yeah, this is amazing. All right, okay, cool. So I think we can leave it there. Thanks for anyone that joined, and we'll hopefully do one of these again in a month.
great.
So cool.
Thanks,
Take
Scott.
care, everyone. Thanks, Justin.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.